he believed in the pragmatist idea of learning by doing. So he thought, if I can bring artifacts to this site and put in that represent American innovation, ingenuity, or resourcefulness, if I can put impressionable kids in daily visceral contact with them, not just that they're looking at the stuff, they're using it. Maybe some of that magic pixie dust will fall onto their shoulders, and we'll get our next generation of inventors and entrepreneurs and innovators.
Absolutely.
The technical legal name of this whole place is the Edison Institute, because Thomas Edison was a friend and a mentor to Henry Ford, so we named this place in honor of him. We haven't really strayed from that initial founding purpose.
Sure.
We're still about innovation. We're still about invention. Now we're more than we have been. We are more overtly about entrepreneurship than we have been in the past. And we do all of these things for a variety of reasons. Probably the primary reason is we think there's a whole lot of potential in everybody that never gets actualized. So talent, creativity, imagination, that's all equally distributed. Opportunity is not. So what we are doing is directing all of our programs, all of our visitor experiences, all of our learning experiences. I don't use the word education anymore.
No.
Learning. All of our learning experiences are directed towards unleashing the potential that we believe. Since its founding, we've always been about being an educational resource. We still believe in lifelong learning, as did Henry, although more recently, we've been taking very seriously the importance of the talent pipeline that our country needs. Not just for tomorrow or 2 years from now.
Right.
5, 10, 15 years from now. Even though most of the concentration everybody is focusing on is here and now, in the next couple of years. We believe you got to play both the short game and the long game.
Completely. I completely agree. The stuff we're doing in government is much more about a fluid transition through experiences more than a set career or a job.
With the increasing globalization and global competition in all different ways, that the answer, the way America needs to address this is through innovation.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, that fit in right with kind of what we're doing. So we think of ourselves as what we do here is addressing a problem of national importance.
Absolutely.
But we also have a real local flavor. So we have Lucy's established partnerships with the Detroit Public School System, for example, or a number of other school systems and districts around the country. So that's...
You know, learning is an internal thing. We can provide opportunities for growth and for sharing, but you get to pick and choose the stories that you take in and what that means to you and how we develop and how we grow. And I think that's, you know, that's really the ultimate driver, is to move people in their own learning journey, so they can be prepared for those careers or whatever it is the language we use to describe them in the future. Our question to ourselves is what are we responsible for, and how can our objects and stories be the kind of, I talk about them being, we have coaches and mentors of the past in innovation, invention and entrepreneurial learning. How can we activate those to inspire and unleash the potential of those today? And then what does that mean for tomorrow?
And I tell them, and I mean this, I say, we're in the inspiration business.
Absolutely.
It's true.
That's the tagline right there.
What we've been kind of moving into is this idea of innovation learning. So you, and to your point, learning is at the forefront of what we're sharing. And I think that's something that we're kind of holding ourselves to. For us, everything, so my role really is about driving our learning strategy for the organisation, and what does that mean kind of holistically. So for us, everything comes from the collection. So we talk about it being powered by the perspective of those stories, right? That's the unique differentiator that we have, is our content.
Yeah.
And you said a dream job. So as an educator, sometimes you have to try and look for content. I don't have to for any content at all. The hardest thing is figuring out which pieces of content to curate. And
Yeah, that's right. I think it's wrapping your arms around it and being able to present it as a digestible set of stories. I wouldn't even say a story.
And that actually, so we actually did work on that, and that led to, we developed what we call our learning framework, made up of 2 frames. So we work with the habits of innovators and the actions of innovation. And for us, it provides this interdisciplinary language of innovation. I think for me, when I arrived, my background is in STEM and STEAM education.
Yes.
And one of the things I realized here was this place forces you to not be able to unpack the stories of innovation from social change. And you, in fact, the building is a building about democracy, and it's not by accident that you have a replica of Independence Hall be the facade for the Museum of American Innovation, because there's this notion that it's the very democratic environment of America that actually allows the kinds of innovations that have taken place, and so that's actually how. So for me, we needed something that allowed for that interdisciplinary nature of innovation to come forward, and this is the language that came out of our own objects and stories. And that's really our foundational tool for connecting.
May I point out something?
Yeah.
So American education system, this is not entirely the focus. I do believe teachers are trying to put this in. I really do. And we've spent a lot of time interviewing teachers, so I can only lift them up and frankly sing their praises, because they're working under a very controlled system and still trying to put these in. But what we haven't done is change our focus entirely in the education system to focus on these. And I think it's great that you all are trying to forge that space as well, because it's a system change, not simply.
So we're trying to take a systemic approach to addressing this. So earlier this week, Lucy and I and our president had a meeting with the dean of the School of Education at University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. Because our hope is that if we could get those people who are teaching our future teachers how to teach, they will adapt some of what we have to offer.
Absolutely.
And again, it's a framework. It's not additional content.
No.
It's a framework for how they can deal with the content that they're responsible for dealing with.
Really, you have to hit it at 3 levels. So many people either try and do a bottom up approach.
Yes.
Some people try and do a middle out approach, and other people try and do a top down approach. Well, my experience is you have to do all 3 at the same time. For those reasons, because at every layer, the people change, the enthusiasm changes, the direction changes, and you have to keep momentum in all 3 places so that it can balance. Each piece can balance the other. That's if you want to really change, create a movement of change within the juggernaut that is education. I mean, that then speaks to why teacher preparation programs, why doing teacher in-service training. I actually, for a number of years, worked with Teacher America, and part of my responsibility was actually training new teachers. And I think, pushing them to create spaces in their classrooms which were more open, less controlled. It was really difficult because they get assessed on their classroom management and control. And if you're a third party and you're walking past a door, control looks, there's an expectation that control looks a certain way. Kids sitting down, working from textbooks, being quiet, right? If you pass those 3, then most administrators are like, you're golden. But if you want to create a creative classroom where kids are being innovative and they're working on projects, Well, that's groups, that's noisy, it requires conversation, it requires a teacher to feel comfortable to let that space go a little bit.
So if you had all the resources in the world, which you probably actually have quite a few, but you also had all the connections. And resources, though, I would challenge that notion of just money. Resources to me are access to policy, right? Access to the change makers, the ability to influence the people who need to step right or left in order to be able to make the change. What would be maybe 3 to 5 that you would say would be the first tier? And I loved your framework of, what's at the basic level, right?
Bottom up,
what's the
middle
second,
out,
and then
top down.
how do you talk to the top who says, you've got to either allocate funds or you've got to create policy that rewards teachers for maybe some wider berth regulation.
So let's use the analogy bottom up, middle out, top down. Bottom up, I actually think showing teachers what works. Actually doing it with them, showing them, and then letting them practice. And that the middle out one, I think for me that one is around. I was thinking about this. The helping administrators learn that a good classroom management is not
What it looks like.
yes.
Yeah.
That we actually have to give, like, it's okay as a principal, that should be encouraged, that that space and freedom is not something to be feared, but something to be embraced.
So I would want to announce the revolution
Yeah.
and invite lots of different players
Yes.
to join
Yes.
the movement.
Love it.
Because I think they should have a somewhat altruistic sense of why they should do this, but self-interested. There's enlightened self-interest involved in this. And instead we get lost in these notions of American exceptionalism, make America great again, all this other stuff. If it means anything, it usually means something not too nice. But everybody, I think, could see that if we encourage the kind of thinking, the kind of mindset, the kind of talent that we've been talking about, that's absolutely critical for meeting problems that aren't just America's problems.
No,